Ay, VP Nanette, it's been so long.
Are you?
2009, 2015, and now 2021.
Yes. Dapat meron na tayong bago for the next 6 years. Every 6 years.
9, 15, 21, 27 na susunod.
May bago na. Ang dami na tayo sa RVOTE.
27 na.
Yeah.
Sino kayong governor sa 2027?
All right, we have just a few more seconds before we start the meeting. We'd like to remind everyone to please keep yourselves muted as we start our program. Just a few reminders before we proceed. Please note that you will not be allowed to unmute during the session. Please also keep your videos on as much as possible. Please rename yourselves to the following format. If you are a Rotarian or Rotaractor, then your name and then your club. If you're a member of media or if you're a guest, then please place your name and your organization beside you. And if you're an LCP or a district officer, kindly add your title before your name so that we can properly recognize you. Questions for the speakers will only be addressed during the open forum. You may leave your questions in the chat box. For today's meeting, we are going to do it a little differently. So for your questions, please place them in the chat box. And then keep all comments and questions respectful, of course. Be reminded that our vote is a non-partisan initiative and targeted rude comments will result in being removed from this session.
Ayun ang governor natin ng 2027.
Peps, walang ganyan. Ano pa? Anyway, so let us start our program. We'd like to welcome you to the meeting of the Rotary Club of Makati as well as the RVOTE session for today. To start the proceedings, we'd like to call on our LCP Louis Asioche of the Rotary Club of Makati.
You're muted.
Again, for the second time, in behalf of the Rotary Club of Makati, I call this meeting to order.
Thank you, President Louis. And now to lead us in our invocation, we'd like to call on past President Fred Parungaw.
Fellow Rotarians, guests, let us place ourselves in the presence of the Lord. Our merciful God, we come to you in our weakness. We come to you in our fear. We come to you in supplication. We come to you in trust. We come to you in hope. We place before you the fate of our country at a time of the most difficult experiences that we are undergoing. The almost endless pandemic, major economic and social dislocations, extreme poverty of a large number of our population, mismanagement and uncontrollable graft and corruption at almost all levels of government, and the absence of a viable program to improve our economy and the standard of living of our countrymen. The time has come again for the people to choose our leaders. We pray that you give our countrymen the wisdom to properly select our government leaders, those who will give us hope, those who will unite us, and those who will work for us and with us, and not against us. We pray that we select leaders who have the vision, the ability, and the willingness to lead our country out of our economic and social misery. We were once the pearl of the Orient Seas. Now we are the sick man of Asia. Lord, we pray for leaders who will lead us to our rightful place in Asia and in the world. Our guest speaker today is Vice President Maria Leonor Robredo. Please grant her the grace to eloquently and comprehensively discuss her program of government if she is elected as our president. Please grant also the audience today the grace to fully understand and absorb her message so that they can make intelligent and proper decisions when they cast their votes in May 2022. All this we pray in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Past President Fred Parungao, for that wonderful prayer. At this point, we're going to have the Philippine National Anthem to be followed by the RC Makati hymn and then the four-way test.
We're the Rotary Club of Makati, and together we stand proud. We are leaders with integrity, always ready to serve humanity, always living by the four-way test, building goodwill and peace along the way. To aid our fellow men, as true Rotarians we live to lead. We believe in service above self, and this is why we succeed. We're the Rotary Club of Makati, and together we stand proud. We are leaders with integrity, always ready to serve humanity, always living by the four-way test, building goodwill and peace along the way, giving hope to the world. We're the Rotary Club of Makati, giving hope to the world. The Rotary Club of Makati.
And now we will have the four-way test. The four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Let us all be reminded of the wise words of Rotary. At this point, we'd like to acknowledge our guests. Now, because of the huge number of participants in this meeting today, we are going to limit the acknowledgement lest we spend too much time on it. So we just like to acknowledge the following dignitaries. Of course, we'd like to recognize the presence of our dear Governor, District Governor 3830 Joji Tan.
Good afternoon. Welcome. Thank you for having us.
We'd also like to recognize the presence of the following past district governors: PDG Tony Kila, PDG Sonny Coloma, PDG Sid Garcia, PDG Peps Bengzon, PDG Chitlihauco, PDG Digna Ragasa. I hope I'm not missing any other PDGs in the crowd. No? We'd also like to recognize the presence of Charter President Nelia Sarcol of the Rotary Club of Makati Circle of Friends, who has brought in today over 100 students of the CIE British School Manila to participate in today's meeting. So thank you very much, CP Nelia, for bringing in our students, no, who should learn a lot from today's meeting. And of course, we'd like to thank you, everyone, for being here with us today. We'd like to thank our fellow Rotarians, the LCPs in the crowd. We'd also like to thank all of you who are not Rotarians, who were invited to this meeting and are interested to find out more about our program today, and of course about our Vice President and her plans if she is elected as President. So to all of you, welcome to the meeting of the Rotary Club of Makati and our vote. And now we'd like to show you a special video to introduce you to what it is that we are doing here in relation to our vote. So Ron, can you please play this video?
Panahon na ng pagpili, panahon na ng halalan.
Madami namang kandidato, madaming mukha at pangalan.
Sino kaya ang bagay sa ating bansa? Hindi lamang forma at salita. Sino o sino kaya? At sana kahit na sinong manalo, pagkatapos ng bilangan, sana naman ang panalo ay taong bayan.
Sino kayang mananalo at magiging totoo
Sa pagnanais ng taong umulat sa madaling panahon. Sino man siya, pag-asa kaya ang dala. Sana naman, sana siya'y tuwid at tapat sa bansa.
at sana kahit na sinong manalo, pagkatapos ng bilangan, sana naman ang panalo ay taong bayan. La 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 la. Sana naman isipin ang kapakanan ng mga mamamayan, maging gabay sa lipunan. At sana kahit na sinong manalo, pagkatapos ng bilangan, sana naman ang panalo ay taong bayan. Sana naman ang panalo ay taong bayan.
Our Vote is an initiative of District 38 and 3830. And to give us an overview of what Our Vote is all about, we'd like to call on the past president of the Rotary Club of Makati Bel Air, the chairperson of Our Vote for District 3830, Nenet Aseñero. Nenet?
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Governor Georgie Tan, our past district governors present here, and our host, the Rotary Club of Makati, Rotarians, and Friends of Rotary. Our Vote was launched in 2009 by then Governor Sid Garcia in time for the Philippine general elections of 2010. The theme for that Rotary year 2009-2010 was "The future of Rotary is in your hands." Little did we know that this future goes or will go beyond Rotary. At that time, the electorate was being prepared for the nationwide automated elections, and the PICOS machine seemed the much-awaited panacea to the election-related problems, weakening the integrity and credibility of the election process because of the long, tedious wait for election results. Or was it only that? Was not public perception manipulated to win hearts and minds? And what about our choice of the nation's leaders? Shouldn't we discern between the good and the bad, the sincere and the insincere, the honest and the liar, the leader and the puppet? Is it not important that you recognize the truth from the lie, the priorities from the inconsequential, real conversation from the babble, genuine concern from that which is fake? It was the first time Rotary dipped its fingers in politics, and we chose politics of higher responsibility through voter education. Our Vote is the district's initiative for voter education. As Rotarians, we cannot hope to build clean, healthy, and green communities, fight poverty and contagious diseases, promote education and livelihood while turning a blind eye on the abysmal political climate that persists. Our Vote's vision is good governance and citizen empowerment. Our mission is to provide a balanced, reliable platform to discern the truth after a fair and collective examination of the information and issues. We invite resource persons, thought leaders, personalities, and the academe, government, the media, and private institutions for lectures on value formation, the Constitution and good governance, economic and social issues. We invite political candidates as guest speakers in Rotary Club meetings such as this to talk on Rotary's focus of concerns: health, water and sanitation, education and development, child and maternal health, peace, conflict resolution and prevention, environment and sustainability, economic and community development. These are grassroots concerns our candidates for public office could share with us. This way, we could discern the nature, character, vision, and more important, the grasp of the candidate regarding these issues, the problems, and solutions. We are non-partisan to any color or creed. Ambassador Henrietta de Villa could not have said it better. We are non-partisan, but never neutral when it comes to good versus evil, truth versus falsehoods, corruption versus good governance. We are for discernment and education that will serve our families, our communities, our people, our nation. Our vote is our future. The District 3830's Our Vote was given recognition with the Rotary International Award for Vocation in 2010. Our Vote returned during the 2016 general elections, and now, during this pandemic, with a very tired nation, tired of the virus and corruption, vicious politics, and the lies, we must work again against those who stole our hopes and gains, compromised our dreams, and sowed doubt on our truths. Voter education must be supported and sustained, especially in this era of digital information and disinformation. The urgency is not so much for us, but for those who have but little means to access reliable and truthful information in time to come up with an informed and educated vote for their future. The urgency is not so much for our own consumption of the truth, but for those who refuse it and worse, embellish it for reasons all their own, paid or otherwise. We must insist on what is true and spread it. The urgency is not so much for our own, but for the future of our children, with whom we will live to see grow in an environment of moral poverty and economic deprivation if we do nothing. The future is in our hands. From our speakers, listen, learn, discern, and do not keep these learnings with you. Share them and share them. Today, we are on RVOTE's third session, and we hope to bring you more until March 2022. Join us, and in our hearts and minds, guided by the Holy Spirit, yes, discern. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Please say yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, PP Nenet. Before we move on, I'd just like to also recognize the presence of PDG Jimmy Cura, IPDG Chacha Camacho, PDG Onya Reyes, PDG Nelson Yu Chong Tian, and DGE Mildred Vitangcol. Again, thank you very much for being with us today. We'd now like to call on President Louis to introduce our district governor.
Okay, thank you once again, Past President Reggie Nolido, and thank you, Chairperson of RVOTE, Past President Tenet Asiniero, for that overview. Our governor, Maria Jocelyn Genevieve Tan, is a true Rotarian in every sense of the word, and I am a personal witness to that. I myself could not catch up with her boundless energy, her zeal, and her dedication. She has been a member of the Rotary Club of Makati, Dasmariñas, which is one of the largest Rotary clubs in the district, for 26 years. When she became the president of her club during the centenary of Rotary in 2004, she was awarded by the district the Centennial Medal of Honor as the most outstanding club president overall for Rotary year 2004 and 2005. Our governor has fulfilled numerous district leadership roles in the past and received many accolades internationally for her outstanding service. Our governor is a graduate of the University of the Philippines College of Dentistry and was a member of the UP faculty for 13 years. She is an orthodontist by profession. She is likewise the president of and CEO of Smile Pilipinas Development Foundation, whose advocacy is to help address the dire state of oral public health in our country. Our governor shares a happy home and family life with Conrad Banal, who himself is the immediate past president of the Rotary Club of Makati, Dasmariñas. Both our governor and past president Conrad Banal are major donors to the Rotary Foundation and members of the Paul Harris Society in their own respective rights. Her vision for this Rotary year is to make it a milestone, life-changing year with renewed commitment for the new decade ahead. If we, life-changing presidents, have our hands full this Rotary year, it is largely because of the zeal, dedication, and commitment of our life-changing governor to Rotary's theme of this year, which is Serve to Change Lives. Ladies and gentlemen, the governor of Rotary District 3830, Dr. Georgie Tan.
Thank you so much, life-changing President Louis. Our honored guest speaker, who shall be properly introduced later on, my dear partner Conrad Banal, past and future district governors, District 3830 officers, District RVOTE Committee chaired by past President Nenette Asenero, led by the Rotary Club of Makati Bel Air, along with the Rotary Clubs of Makati, Makati Dasmariñas, My Home Club, Muntinlupa Business District, and Alabang Lampara. The 120 esteemed members of the Rotary Club of Makati, led by life-changing President Louis Aceoche. Let's give a big hand to our host club today. Life-changing presidents of the 109 Rotary Clubs of Rotary International District 3830 with 3,176 Rotarian members from the areas of Makati, Parañaque, Muntinlupa, Las Piñas, Taguig, Pateros, and Palawan. Fellow Rotarians, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant afternoon. My parents, Rodi and Josie Leaño Tan, who are both dentists, are already in their late 80s. Many issues bother most people of their age: health, finances, even things as trite as whether or not to have a second serving of dessert. Indeed, they are in the twilight of their years, and short-term memory loss becomes a real problem for them. Even then, they keep asking us, their children, if we, together with the rest of our households, registered for the coming national elections. Every time I see them, it is the same question. Are we going to vote in May next year? Our olds seem to be immune to memory loss when it comes to the national elections. And when I try to explain to myself their eagerness, the reasons behind this special concern, I can only come up with their life experiences. National elections are a major concern to them, or presumably to most of the elderlies in our country, perhaps because of what their generation went through. World War II, military regime, crisis after crisis. With all the hardship that they suffered, I could only surmise that they put a lot of value to their right of suffrage. Perhaps much more than the succeeding generations. Today, many of us really tend to take for granted the right to vote, yet we know that elections are a most important political exercise in our country because it is the only time that we, the ordinary citizens, get to decide the future of our country. Elections can really change lives. Forgive that little plug for this year's Rotary International theme, but I have to squeeze it in because among the values that we espouse in Rotary, particularly in our district, are a keen sense of civic duty, responsible leadership, and ethical behavior. Those values must also apply in all aspects of our lives as Rotarians, even in our choices of public officials. Thus, we have an obligation to go out and vote in May next year. Not only that, we also have to vote wisely. No less than the future of our country is at stake. How do we vote wisely? As I said in a previous RVOTE session, we have to try to be informed instead of just opinionated. And they are the exact opposite. Being opinionated means that we do the talking. Being informed means that we do the listening. Precisely, the RVOTE program tries to provide us the forum to be informed. It is an institutionalized program for responsible voting led by the Rotary Club of Makati Bel Air. and as Nanette mentioned, started way back in 2009 upon the initiative of past District Governor Sid Garcia of the Rotary Club of Makati. Up to this day, the program continues to inspire Rotarians of all ages, shapes, and figures, or even political inclinations, to participate in our electoral process. I am confident that we all will learn something today. On behalf of District 3830, I welcome you all. Let us get on with today's most interesting Series 3. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gov. Georgie Tan, our very hardworking governor. Before we move on, again, I just like to remind everyone of the reminders we earlier had. No? First, if you have any questions, please leave them in the chat box. And more importantly, please keep all your comments and questions respectful. Already we see in the chat box that there were some people who left some unsavory notes, no? And they have been removed from the meeting. So be reminded that our vote is a non-partisan initiative, and targeted rude comments will result in being removed from the session. So again, please be reminded of that. Now we'd like to call on our Secretary Eddie Galvez of the Rotary Club of Makati to introduce our guest speaker for today.
Thank you, Reggie. Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians and guests. Our special guest today really does not need any lengthy introduction. So with that, it is both my honor and privilege to present the Vice President of the Republic of the Philippines, Honorable Maria Leonor Leni Robredo.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Madam Vice President, we're not seeing your video. There might be a little problem.
Yeah.
There you go.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry about that. Thank you for inviting me to join you as you come together today for the meeting. Maraming salamat for all that you do to respond to the challenges of our time, and for trusting the office of the Vice President as your partner in many endeavors. Whether it's in putting up dormitories for students, community learning hubs, and disaster relief missions, all our efforts have only been successful because of the spirit of solidarity. This is what allowed us to harness the reach and resources of partners from both the private sector and the local governments, and the power of so many citizens who are extraordinary in their selflessness. During times of crisis, people will look to their leaders, especially from government, to provide direction, hope, and a measure of certainty, so that we can all begin to reclaim our lives and our futures. And leaders can only fulfill this expectation with empathy, reaching out, listening, and imagining ourselves in the shoes of the people we wish to serve. If we open our hearts to them and dig deep, we will arrive at the central revelation of our interconnectedness. Ganito pala ang hinihiling sa atin upang mabuhay sa mundo. To hold ourselves accountable for the sufferings and the aspirations of those around us, spending our days thinking of how to make their burdens easier to bear, how to make their dreams a little easier to reach. This was foremost in our minds when, during the height of lockdowns last year, we shifted our focus to our COVID-19 initiatives. Our goal was to fill the gaps that needed to be filled in terms of government response. When doctors, nurses, and other medical frontliners were dying because of lack of personal protective equipment, we worked with various groups and organizations to provide the needed PPE sets. When public transportation ground to a halt, we immediately rolled out free shuttle services and opened free dorms and temporary living spaces. When DepEd announced a shift to blended learning, we launched Bayanihan Eskwela, which provided gadgets to students in need, produced instructional videos to help our teachers and parents adjust to the new teaching methods, and established community learning hubs where learners have a conducive space to study, complete with volunteer tutors, learning tools and supplies, and internet connection for children who do not have gadgets of their own or might find it hard to adjust to distance learning at home. When the community lockdowns caused many businesses to close shop, leaving many Filipinos unemployed and out of livelihood, we launched sikap.ph, an online jobs matching platform for blue-collar workers, and Bayanihan Mart at iskaparate.com to help small business owners gain an online presence. After the elections next year, if you are fortunate to be elected president, we will inherit huge challenges and it will take great effort to rise to the challenges. We will continue to focus, at least in the first 100 days, on addressing the challenges of the pandemic. We have to control community transmission and mitigate the effects and prevent the crisis, put our house in order and restore confidence in the Philippine government. We also need to engage all of society in rebuilding our broken nation and determining the course we take together as a people. And most importantly, make the lives of all Filipinos, especially those left behind, better, safer, healthier, and more secure. Aayusin muna natin ang bahay natin at ang paraan ng pamamahala. Nasa pagtutulungan ang susi ng pag-abot sa mga kolektibo nating hangarin. Mula sa pagbangon ng ekonomiya, pagdami ng mga trabaho sa iba't ibang industriya, at pagbubukas na marami pang opportunities para umasenso at guminhawa ang buhay ng bawat Pilipino. Alam kong kasama ko kayo nagtatrabaho from day one para makamit itong mga hangarin na ito. And this has only fueled our resolve to strive even harder in the work that we do. Napakaraming nakasalalay. We are fighting not only for our own children and families, but also our communities, our country, and the generations that will follow. For many Filipinos, this is not a matter of personalities. This is a matter of survival. The pandemic has only made it even starker. Every day, we see the strain, the suffering, the grief of those coming to our office for help. Pati yung mga binibisita namin sa mga communities. That is why we need to free ourselves first from the grip of the pandemic. And to do that, we need a clear, extensive, strategic, and empowering response. Last Wednesday, we released our Kalayaan sa COVID plan, which focuses on 3 freedoms that are crucial for us to overcoming the challenges of the pandemic. First, kalayaan mula sa pangambang magkasakit. This means stopping the root of corruption and its anomalies and replacing it with leadership that is honest, competent, and compassionate. We will strengthen our healthcare system by ensuring that our medical facilities are responsive to the needs of our people and that it is manned by frontliners who are properly capacitated and compensated. We believe that vaccination is the only long-term solution to overcoming the pandemic. So we will ensure that every Filipino is inoculated and protected from the virus. We will establish a robust national distribution network where it is government that goes out to our communities to deliver the much-needed vaccines. Second, kalayaan mula sa gutom. As I have said before, we have to act immediately to make sure that this health crisis does not turn into a hunger and food crisis. Our proposal, immediate relief assistance when lockdowns are enforced, and enforcing lockdowns on targeted areas only. we have to protect the jobs and livelihood of Filipinos through financial aid for small businesses, unemployment insurance to those who lost their jobs, and other support that government can provide that ensures their families have food to eat. There is also a pressing need to strengthen agriculture. Aside from securing the livelihoods of farmers and fisherfolk, we will ensure that food production continues to be unhampered. Third, kalayaan sa kakulangan sa edukasyon. Our plan, open schools in areas with low COVID prevalence. In high-risk areas, our target is to give every student a gadget. Students will be provided with free internet access and quality educational materials so that learning continues even in the time of the pandemic. Educators and parents must also be supported at this time. So we will continue to give our utmost to help them in any way possible. This is the outline of our COVID-19 Freedom Plan. The more detailed steps towards securing these freedoms are available on lenirobredo.com. We have uploaded that last week. Every step, every plan will be informed by the values and aspirations we share. All of them will be underpinned by good governance, by leadership that is competent and compassionate, one that ensures that no one is left behind as we chart the best path forward. It brings me joy to see that we are together in moving towards this shared horizon. The task before us now is to deepen your connections, our connections with one another, and engage further in our communities, to be creative, be resourceful in seeking solutions, find more gaps and fill them, and inspire others to do the same. So with you at our side, I have no doubt that we can achieve the future of our hopes. A society where fairness reigns and where every individual is empowered, where plans are concretized because there is a sensible and efficient government with honest and accountable officials and leaders who put the interest of the Filipino first. Thank you very much. Mabuhay kayong lahat.
Thank you very much, Madam Vice President, for your very inspiring words. Of course, the question everyone wants to know is pink the color of hope? And so from that, we move on, therefore, to our Q&A session. Now, this is a little departure from a usual Q&A session in that for today, we will have a panel of distinguished gentlemen who will lead us in the Q&A. Now, for the audience, again, if you have any questions, please place them in the chat box, and our panel will be sure to cull through them and then pick up those that are going to be relevant. For our panel today, we have heading it the former president of the University of the Philippines, the incoming president of the Management Association of the Philippines, and the past president of the Rotary Club of Makati for Rotary year 2018 to 2019, past President Fred Pascual. With him in our panel is the former Deputy Commissioner of the Bureau of Customs, the current Community Service Chair in partnership of District 3830, and a partner of Stamp Law Office, immediate past President Peter Manzano. We also have in our panel the convener of Sambayan, the senior managing partner of Calleja Law Office, and a member of the Rotary Club of Makati since 2013, Rotarian Howie Calleja. And lastly, but not the least, we have the current district chair of the Rotary Community Corps, a past president of the Rotary Club of Makati Bel Air, and the stalwart of the district, past president Harold Dacumus. Ron, I think we have to address the feedback. Gentlemen, the floor is now yours.
Thank you, VP Reggie. Thank you, Vice President Leni, for your inspiring and empowering speech, particularly when you touch upon the problems that the pandemic has brought to us. It's good to see you again, virtually.
Good to see you again.
The members of the Q&A panel will ask their respective questions sequentially in 2 or more rounds. Some of the questions they will articulate would come from the audience. Let me ask the first question. In your speech, you referred to inherited problems, particularly those related to the pandemic, or more specifically, the handling of the pandemic. And you explained your 3-point COVID-19 freedom plan to address these pandemic-related challenges. But aside from these problems that we link to the pandemic, what are the most serious problems that have battered us for generations that you see in the country? And based on your 5-year experience as Vice President, how would your administration intend to tackle these sometimes existential and sometimes pestering problems?
Thank you very much for that, sir. It is very good to see you again. I remember under your leadership, we had a partnership in setting up dormitories in far off public high schools. I mentioned earlier that much of the problem brought about by the pandemic concerns health and economy. But the third point that I tried to emphasize is the problem with education. And you know, this problem with education, we were already having this even before the pandemic. In fact, I mentioned earlier that with regards to education, we need clear guidelines on the resumption of face-to-face classes. I was telling you earlier that we need to have a risk assessment map for low-risk areas and for high-risk areas. But if you look at the problem, as I have said earlier, it was a problem even before the pandemic. We need to allocate our computation is 68 billion pesos for education-related assistance, and by following the current models being done by the OVP to create really more community learning hubs, more teacher training. If we look back, even before the pandemic, we have ranked at the bottom of many international student assessments the past several years. So we need to find out what we are doing wrong and immediately institute honest to goodness remediation. And one of this is to increase the education budget. Right now, our education budget, I think, is at 3% of GDP. Our proposal is to increase it to 6% of GDP, or that's more than 1 trillion pesos by 2024, 2025. And 6% of GDP is the UN proposed portion of the GDP to be spent in education. And this will go, among other things, into investing heavily on teacher training and capacitation. We have to improve our teacher-to-student ratio and our class sizes and revisit our curriculum. Our plan is that by 2022, we will have created a multi-sectoral education commission to address issues of governance, access, and quality, and develop a roadmap to measurably improve learning outcomes. In fact, I have suggested early on that we should declare education crisis already and to turn around our performance in international student assessments. The first step really is to invest in data gathering capabilities for effective decision making. This would include rolling out a national learning assessment program that will diagnose missed learning at the student and school level. Again, I mentioned earlier to create an honest to goodness remediation program guided by this national learning assessment program to address learning losses and continue participating in international large-scale learning assessments to actively trace improvement in test scores. For me, education is very crucial because the effects is really intergenerational, and it is something that we have to address early on as we are addressing the effects of the pandemic.
Thank you. Just a quick follow-up. Of course, you cannot do things on your own. You'll have to form your team. Now, I'd like to ask, how would you go about selecting your cabinet members to ensure that you have the best possible appointed leaders as your alter egos in the various government departments? As you very well know, over the past so many administrations, there have always been an issues on the choice of cabinet members.
Sir, we will appoint cabinet members and officials based on merit. We will choose people who are not just experts in their respective fields, but have actual on-the-ground experience of the work that they are expected to do. They should be good managers. They should have a reputation of actually getting the job done, bears no conflict of interest, and very well respected in their field of expertise. As president, we have an obligation to the people that those who will be appointed are competent and qualified.
Thank you. Over to you, VP Peter.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Among the presidential aspirants, and by presidential aspirants, I mean those who have filed their certificates for candidacy for president, who do you think is your toughest opponent, and how do you plan to win the elections?
Sir, it is difficult to say. It is difficult to say. Right now, we are very much focused on the kind of campaign that we want to do. You know that I decided a little at the 11th hour. So there is much catching up to do. Our only focus is really how to get the job done. Our campaign is turning out to be very unconventional. Unlike any of the campaigns I've been a part of since 1988. Our supporters are the ones causing the ground to shift. They've been organizing, fighting trolls, keeping us present on social media platforms, putting up billboards, printing tarps, creating campaign merchandise, planning events. Kami na sir yung sumusunod. But we comfort ourselves with the thought that history has shown us that no amount of resources, political power, or machinery can topple the will of the people. And if this people's movement can be sustained until May, then we are very hopeful. We would have a very good chance at making it.
Speaking of presidential aspirants, and this is a question from our friends in the media, may we ask for your response on the statement of former Senator Bongbong Marcos Jr. yesterday, telling you to tell the petitioners to drop the case against him. I believe this is in line with your earlier statement that the disqualification filed against him to remove him from the contest is not necessary.
Sir, if I am not mistaken, Attorney Howie Calleja is one of the petitioners. Tanungin natin si Attorney Howie if we had anything to do with the petition.
Of course, Madam Vice President, I'm here to confirm that we never talked about the petition.
Yeah,
so I think that is to clear the air on everything.
Saka naman, sa akin naman, hindi naman kami diktador. Bakit didiktahan namin yung mga petitioners na i-withdraw yun? But if Mr. Marcos thinks that there is no ground for the petition to prosper, wala naman siyang dapat ikatakot.
Thank you. I think I'll give it now to VP Harold.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
President. I'm very glad that one of your platforms is to eradicate poverty. In the recent report of World Bank, at least 2 million more Filipinos became poor in 2020 due to reduced household income and disrupted business activities amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, citing the July 2021 edition of the Lender's Philippine Economic Update, World Bank economist Kevin Chua said poverty is estimated to increase by around 1.4 percentage points in between 2018 and 2020 based on the lower middle poverty line of $3.2 per day. So can you, although you haven't touched that in your program as one of the pressing priorities, can you discuss us how you will be able to increase the low economic growth that we are suffering right now And because of the pandemic, it created unemployment and exacerbated the poverty situation in the Philippines. And there are more than, if we are estimating that 107 million Filipinos, 21%, World Bank said that they are now in extreme poverty. That's more than 22 million, Madam President.
Unemployment is at alarming rate now, one of the highest in many years. But our main philosophy is number one, to protect, and number two, to create jobs. First, to protect, we have to make sure that no more jobs are lost due to the pandemic. That is why we are proposing a conditional stimulus package for MSMEs, hinged on the condition that they do not lay off workers. The next step is the bigger one, which is to create jobs. We need to rebuild trust in government by making sure that policies are dependable and predictable. Foreign and domestic investments, we all know, will only dramatically rise if we have the necessary infrastructure and logistics for them. For them to thrive, and we can offer a stable and strong political and economic climate. We need to prioritize lowering of power rates and other utility costs, prioritize mass transport. Our government, aside from improving ease of doing business, will not change, will promise not to change the rules for business in the middle of the game. That's usually the complaint. And will make sure that everyone is given a level playing field. The government will also focus on training, reskilling, upskilling our workforce to prepare them, accelerate our tech and digital infrastructure. We will also need to ensure that we encourage community entrepreneurship and provide the necessary environment for it to thrive. Also strengthen rural development and giving agriculture the much needed boost.
Madam President, related to that is a question on the war on drugs. No? Now, since taking office 2016, President Duterte's war on drugs had led to death of over 12,000 Filipinos, as reported, and mostly these are urban poor. So what is your specific prescription on this and your take about this war on drug? Will you continue what the President Duterte is doing, no? Mobilizing the PNP, PDEA, no? And and if you're elected president, how you will be able to institutionalize to really fight this menace in our country?
Sir, we will continue to fight drugs in the Robredo administration, but we will change the approach, definitely. From a purely enforcement-focused one to a whole-of-government approach. We will apply the lessons and international best practices. We will change the leadership and composition of the ICAD. I was given the privilege of being ICAD co-chair for 18 days, but that gave me the opportunity to see for myself what is being done wrong. In fact, after I was booted out of ICAD, the first thing that I was able to submit a really comprehensive report on step-by-step recommendations. And the first recommendation that I gave was really to ask DDB, Dangerous Drugs Board, to lead ICAD instead of PDEA. DDB is more policy and PDEA is enforcement. That should change the course of the entire anti-drug war. Number two, to really institute a data-driven approach, and this entails acquiring reliable baseline data, not just on the number of drug dependents, but how much illegal drugs are in the market, with clear disaggregations between the number of users from pushers. I remember when I was in ICAD, this was not available. There will be a uniform monitoring system to track what interventions are needed for drug dependence and the outcomes of these interventions. We'll also concentrate on supply constriction instead of focusing on street level enforcement. Again, during my stint in ICAD in late 2019, we found out that in the years 2017, 2018, and 2019, only 1% of the country's drug supply was curtailed. So clearly, a primary orientation on street level enforcement was not working. And this was after so many deaths already. We will change the approach and go for the big fish. This entails shifting the focus of law enforcement agencies to really constricting supply, where the big players are, and providing the necessary equipment and staffing to law enforcement agencies to capacitate them to be more effectively prevent the entry of illegal drugs into the country, and also strengthening the role of the AMLAC in the anti-illegal drug campaign. I remember when I was ICAD co-chair, I felt that the membership of AMLAC in ICAD was not being maximized to the fullest.
So thank you very much, Madam Vice President, for that very clear and comprehensive approach to these two major issues confronting our country today. Attorney Calleja, maybe your turn.
Good afternoon, Madam Vice President.
Afternoon, sir.
And again, let me clarify, we did what we filed in our own personal capacity, Madam, without your knowledge. Now for the question, ma'am.
Thank you for that, Attorney.
And now for the questions, ma'am. We go back to a little politics, ma'am. We know that the NTF-LCAC has increased its budget for the year 2022 to fight the NDF-NPA, but actually the 26 billion funds is suspected to be used for elections purposes, especially in giving to the barangays. What will be your, how would you adjust these funds if ever anything will be left, if ever you win come June or May 2022? And how would you counteract, if any, the use of these funds during the campaign?
Attorney Calleja, I think I already mentioned this in some of the previous interviews that there is really a duplication of many efforts, the duplication of the mandate, and it has to be abolished. Ang pinakatakot ko dito is that magiging tokhang ulit ito. Magiging tokhang version 2 in the sense that the mandate given to the body will be abused, will be used to harass people. I have always been very clear on my position on the issues on peace talks, the issues of NDF, NPA, the issues on how to combat insurgency. And I have always been very vocal about my push to re-engage again communities and civil society organizations, and demanding not just from CPP, NPA, NDF, but also from the government to create a more conducive and enabling environment for peace negotiations to resume. There must be a call for a complete cessation of hostilities and violence and to spare communities in conflict-affected areas. There must be a rejection of the militarist approaches to ending internal armed conflict, and instead encourage strong participation of CSOs, the private sector, the church, in the peace process. Yung nangyayari kasi ngayon, parang sobrang emphasis on a purely militaristic approach. Also, improve the targeting and increase of resources for basic services in communities with special focus on conflict-affected areas. Pag sinabi natin services, that would include education, health, social protection, basic infrastructure for livelihood, communication and connectivity, microfinance, the works. And also strengthen government integration programs for former rebels, families and communities to allow them to lead peaceful and productive civilian lives. Para kasi sa akin, this cannot be solved by using a purely militaristic approach. We have to go to the root of the problem of insurgency to be able to give a more long-term solution to the same.
Thank you for that. And on my second question with regards to the election, just this morning, Vice Mayor Duterte, I think you've heard, have withdrew his candidacy for Vice Mayor, raising speculation that he will substitute Sara for Vice Mayor, then Sara to go up for President or Vice President. Would this substitution, if it would take place on or before November 15, would it change any of your campaign strategy, or would it, how would it affect your coalition building or campaign strategy as the election goes near?
As far as our ticket is concerned, I don't think it will affect us at all. If at all, when that happens, the lines will be clearer. I was saying earlier that this campaign is turning out to be very unconventional. Very unconventional in the sense na the more conventional approach is we are the candidates, we are the ones who organize on the ground. We are the ones who commission ad agencies to do all the campaign materials, to do our ads. But right now it's the opposite. It's the opposite. I was saying earlier that our supporters are the ones causing the ground to shift. Kadalasan nga kami yung nag-a-adjust. Even the color, I really planned on blue to be the color of the campaign, but the supporters unified on pink as a symbol of the shared initiatives that are being done. So we followed. Gaya na sabi ko kanina, the way things are turning out now, yung groundswell is making the campaign really not a campaign but a people's movement. And as I have said earlier, that history has also always shown us that no amount of resources, political power, machinery can really topple the will of the people.
Okay, thank you, Madam Vice President. And again, I throw you back to PP Fred for the next set of questions. PP Fred?
Thank you, Attorney Howie. Let me ask a question related to inter-administration transitions. You know, there have been practices that we have seen of the new administration erasing everything that has been done by the previous administration and starting anew. In relation to this practice, I'd like to ask Madam Vice President, what are the policies of the current administration you think are worthy of being continued with or without modification? And which policies do you think have to be changed or dismantled outright?
One of the policies that I feel should be pursued in the next administration is the Build program. But we will be tweaking it in such a way that there will be more emphasis on infrastructure that will spur rural development. There's been a lot of effort on strengthening the justice system. And I feel that it is one of the things that we really need to continue. There are a lot of things that we want to change. One of them I already mentioned earlier, the war on drugs. Second, we really need to speed up our infrastructure on tech and digital, in as much as the pandemic only made it clear how much we are lagging behind. Foreign policy, we will have to tweak it. We will have to tweak it in such a way that, you know, there is a lot to strengthen. There is a lot to put in order. I was in a talk in Bacolod during the weekend, and I was telling them that the first order of business is of course controlling the pandemic, mitigating the effects, but also to put the house in order, restore confidence in the Philippine government, engage all of Philippine society, because the rebuilding will take so much from us. But I agree with you, sir, that, you know, one of the things that is very wrong when there is a change in administration is that everything is on a reset button. For example, one of one of my biggest frustrations after the change in administration in 2016 was the doing away with bottom-up budgeting, which I felt would have been a very good vehicle in spurring rural development. We need to take stock of what are the things that are doing well and continue with it, and what are the things that are not working, and those are the things that we need to change.
Well, you mentioned, Madam Vice President, foreign relations. Just quickly, how would you balance the country's relations with the US and China to maximize benefits we can draw from each one of them while protecting the country's national interests?
Again, sir, it is all about balance and inclusiveness, always bearing in mind that the interests of the country and the people are foremost. We will continue to nurture our important relationship with China, but it must be premised on mutual respect and in accordance with international law, which includes the UNCLOS and the decision of the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea. This is the judgment of the award of the arbitral tribunal with regards to the West Philippine Sea. And to protect our national interests, we must also strengthen our ties with emerging security partners, such as Japan, South Korea, India, Australia. Our traditional allies. We will also continue to deal with the United States, our only mutual defense treaty ally, in the fields of economics and trade, countering terrorism, trafficking in persons, disaster response, and fighting the illegal drugs case, and also with our pandemic response.
Thank you. VP Peter?
Yeah. Thank you, VP Fred. This is a question from Ms. Marisa Luz-Tronqued from the audience. Apart from the immediate issues facing the country's drive to manage the pandemic and the healthcare situation, what would be the top 3 areas you would be addressing in your first 6 months of presidency if elected?
I think I mentioned it a while ago already that education is one, and not just education, the damage to education because of the pandemic, but also the education crisis that we have been facing even before the pandemic. Putting the house in order. I think I mentioned this a while ago, restoring confidence in the Philippines, fixing, I already mentioned our upholding the arbitral ruling by taking a principled stand, backed by stronger domestic capabilities, push for stronger relations with international partners, reclaim our place as a respected member of the community of nations. The economy will be major in as much as the unemployment rate will, if not abated, will really all boil down to hunger, food security, poverty, and its many effects. I think I already mentioned earlier what we intend to do as far as making our country making the business community, or inviting foreign investments and strengthening domestic businesses to thrive, and giving them a business climate that will make them stay. I mentioned earlier already about fixing logistics, fixing infrastructure, taking care of the high costs of power, providing for more rural development. I think it's a combination of many different things.
Yeah. Okay, I think that answers the question of VP Rene Limhoco. How do you propose to create jobs critically needed to reduce poverty? And here's a question in relation to that also from PP Junjun Dairit. Madam Vice President, what will be your program for agriculture if you are elected to the presidency?
Agriculture during the pandemic has shown us that it is one of the most resilient. It is one of the most resilient of all the sectors, and we have not been we have not been giving focus on agriculture as a major sector. We have been talking to a lot of many farmer groups, many fisher folk groups, and the complaints are similar. One complaint is, one complaint is really how our policies are have been because of import liberalization, and setting aside for the meantime our issues about our international trade agreements. The call for us to carefully calibrate imports is consistent with our stand that the Filipino farmer must be accorded adequate and appropriate policy and other support measures to make farming more profitable. Yun talaga yung pinakareklamo nila ngayon eh. Hindi na sila nag-earn, nagpo-profit dahil sobrang bagsak yung presyo ng mga imports na pinapasok natin. And it's like a chicken and egg thing. One of the reasons why most of our farmers cannot compete, farmers cannot compete with very low import prices is that most of the imports are being subsidized by the government. So it is one thing that we should take into consideration. Baka kinakailangan na natin i-subsidize yung maraming mga bagay na contributory to making our agricultural products uncompetitive to foreign markets. At the Office of the Vice President, we also started a program for farmers where we are training farming communities to be entrepreneurs. And it has yielded very good results. What we have been doing is, when we train them to be entrepreneurs, they learn how to deal with institutional buyers. And they are able to take away middlemen already. We are doing a program in Camarines Sur. It's called Umasenso sa Kabuhayan, where what we did was partner with the business community and the different farmer groups. Parang mas cooperative style, pero mas loose na cooperative. We're helping them with inputs. We're helping them with financial grants. We're working with DA, DAR, DTI, and DOST in helping them out. So parang binubuhos yung tulong sa mga farmers to capacitate them, to help them produce the quantity and the quality needed by our institutional buyers. We serve as a platform in linking institutional buyers to farmer groups. And yung resulta nito napakaganda. We were able to develop this model from the model being done by Jollibee already. And I think it is a very good model that can be followed elsewhere, especially as far as small farmers are concerned. On the issue of agrarian reform as a factor in helping farmers, I am fully aware of the apprehensions about the program's failures and shortcomings, especially where support services have failed to turn agrarian reform beneficiaries into economically viable farmers. But we are also cognizant of the successes and the need for government to replicate those successes in areas already covered by the program. Yung successes na to, ito yung example na sinasabi ko. I was also in Bacolod during the weekend. And one of the things that was discussed to me was the concept of block farming. And it's a very good model which can be replicated in many other locations around the country. Yung support services that are needed. Paminsan kasi one of the things that I saw when we were doing the program was a lot of our agencies have very good programs but are working on silos. Ang isa pa, parang mali yung ating metrics. Yung metrics natin na ginagamit ngayon, parang we measure activities and not outcomes. And I think that should change, not just in agriculture, but in many other agencies in the government. We will be more concerned with outcomes rather than activities. Kasi napansin ko, halimbawa feeding programs, pag nire-report ito, parating ang report, ilang bata yung na-feed. Sa agriculture, ganun din. Ilan ba yung naibigay na hindi sinusukat kung ano yung epekto nung naibigay?
Thank you, Madam Vice President. VP Harold.
Madam President, can we call you Madam President? Well, given that other countries are now recovering from the pandemic and some even managed to keep the number of cases under control, what concrete plans do you have in mind in overcoming the pandemic in our country? Also, do you have plans to shift the healthcare system to create a more affordable, accessible, and yet efficient service for all Filipinos? For example po, yung cheaper medicine, free healthcare. At ito po'y galing sa CIE British School, Patricia.
Actually, sir, yesterday we had a press conference. We had a press conference it was an extensive discussion of our COVID plan. And in my speech earlier, I already gave a summary of what it is about. The entire the detailed steps can be found at the lenirobredo.com website. But just to summarize again what the steps are, we divided our plan into 3. And the first one is health, the second one is economy, and the third one is education. As far as health is concerned, we saw a lot of gaps that need to be filled. An example dyan, sir, and this was exposed during the surge, especially the second to the last one and the last one, yung pila na napakarami sa mga ospital. Yung mga namamatay na naghihintay sa mga tents, yung mga namamatay habang naghahanap ng ospital. Pag tiningnan natin yung available yung number of hospital beds as a factor of population, makikita natin na sobrang laki ng gap. Sobrang laki ng gap, like Metro Manila has 1.4 beds for every 1,000 population. Pero pag tiningnan natin, yun na yung pinakamataas. Yun na yung pinakamataas. Ang susunod doon, sobrang bababa na. Halimbawa, example, yung Mimaropa, 0.1 lang. 0.1 bed to 1,000 population. So parang hindi equal yung distribution. Hindi equal yung distribution ng pag-ayos ng hospital capacity. And we are not just talking on the number of beds. Kasama pa dito yung mga equipment. Yung kakayahan ng mga ospital na makapagbigay ng serbisyo. That is just one part of it. Pero yung pag tiningnan kasi natin, parang to just summarize everything. Pag tiningnan natin, parang we are only spending about $50 for every patient. Pero yung average ng mid-level income ng mga countries, parang spend sila about $190 per patient. So sobrang layo natin. Sobrang layo natin dun sa international standard na kailangan talagang dagdagan natin yung ating budget for health. Pero ano yun eh? It's very complex. Hospital facilities is just one. Health facilities, I mean, is just one. Accessibility is also a problem. So yung sa akin, mas pagbaba sa communities nung not just services but facilities also. Asikasuhin yung pag-equip ng mga barangay health centers, ng mga rural health centers. Hindi lang pag-equip sa gamit, pero making sure that at least there is a nurse in every barangay. Tapos yung paggamit ng extensive na telemedicine, we have been doing that since April. Kami nga wala kaming kaalam-alam sa medicine. But we have been doing Bayanihan e-consulta where volunteer doctors have been helping us. But we saw how important this is, especially for patients who do not have real access to medical services. Pangatlong problema na nakita natin during the pandemic, wala talagang kulang na kulang yung ating healthcare personnel. Kulang na kulang yung ating healthcare personnel kahit merong beds available. Hospitals cannot take in patients anymore dahil kulang. Pag tiningnan natin yung pag tiningnan natin yung entry level salary ng nurses natin, for example, ang layo natin compared to other countries. I think ang entry level natin is only about 32,000 to 34,000. Tapos yung parang mid-level ng mga nurses yata natin, mga 40,000. Pag kinumpara natin yung sa ibang countries, ang layo. Ang layo ng sweldo ng ibang bansa. So how do we keep our healthcare personnel if we do not compensate them enough? Marami, sir, but all of this are available in our website. Pero there is much to be done. Pati yung rollout ng universal healthcare, matagal na itong napas pero hanggang ngayon hindi pa operationalized most of the provisions of the universal healthcare.
Maraming salamat po, Madam Vice President. May related question ako na last question. It's reported that the national government total outstanding debt stood at 11.61 trillion as of end of July 2021. Yung pong programa ninyo na in-outline about health, economy, and education obviously need funding. Okay? At how do you address this ballooning debt, okay, of our national government in relation to other programs that need priority funding, assuming you will make it in the May 2022 election, Madam?
Actually, sir, during the press conference yesterday, I mentioned yesterday na may na-identify na kami. Na about 500 billion pesos. Hindi ito hindi siya new entry in the budget. Pero mga nasa budget siya na pwedeng i-convert pwedeng i-refocus on pandemic response. But pag tiningnan natin yung outstanding debt natin ngayon, almost 13 trillion. A big percentage of this comes from loans from the World Bank and the ADB. And these were concessional and emergency loans na gustong sabihin, lower yung interest rates niya, saka mas maayos yung debt structure. So para sa akin, the more pressing issue really is not the absolute amount of the debt, pero paano ba natin ginamit? Paano ba natin ginamit o paano ba natin ginagamit yung perang hiniram natin? So first of all, we will have to signal to creditors that we will abide by the terms of the debt. Second, we need to show that we used and are using the money wisely. We will ensure that corruption issues surrounding COVID response now will stop. We will make the message very clear that yung perang pinahiram sa atin, ginagamit natin ito ng maayos for the Filipino people. Tapos yung pangatlo siguro dito, pag tiningnan kasi natin, sir, yung debt to GDP ratio, ngayon nasa 60% na tayo. Nasa 60% na tayong GDP. Before the pandemic, I think a little over 40%. So grabe na yung tinaas niya talaga. And this is worrying. Because pag lumampas pa ito sa 60%, magsisignal na ito ng debt crisis. So kailangan, we need to plug in the leaks to make sure that no money is lost to corruption. And that yung utang na we are acquiring should go to where it is meant to. We will focus on increasing economic activity and try to return to normal as soon as possible. Kasi yung susi kasi dito, how fast we recover. So that we will incur less debt in the future. Hindi na natin kailangang umutang kasi bumabalik na tayo sa maayos. Saka mababa natin yung debt to GDP ratio para ma-prevent natin yung possible na credit ratings loss. We will also implement the budget and the programs of the government properly. We will implement social protection programs to ensure that no one is left behind. Kanina kwento ko na to na yung tulong sa MSMEs para ma-prevent yung more unemployment. Yung big ticket projects like infrastructure, we will partner with the private sector so that we will not add to the burden of government. financing infra projects, and we can concentrate on incentivizing innovations, social protection for the vulnerable, improving programs for social mobility, and helping our SMEs cover. Ako sir, while malaki yung problema natin, I am confident na pag na-arrest natin ito after the elections, we will be on the road to recovery as long as we restore confidence of the people sa kanilang gobyerno.
Maraming salamat po. Attorney Owie, your turn please.
Okay, good afternoon again, Madam President. And sinabi na po ni VP Harold, President Leni. So ang aking pong huling katanungan, Madam President, pagka po inyong panalo sa May at pagkaupo po nyo sa June 2020, ipagpapatuloy nyo ba ang ayuda o kayo po ay papayag na isulong ang across the board na increase sa ating minimum wage na siguro 10% para po makatulong sa ating mga kababayan at puro po matulungan ng ating ekonomiya? So maybe an increase in the minimum wage of 10%, Madam President.
Ako yun yung kahilingan. Attorney Howie, yun yung kahilingan ng maraming mga manggagawa na kabahagi ng ating programa since 2016. Pero yung sa amin, yung parate namin policy dito sa office, since I assumed office in 2016, na yung lahat na policy na lumalabas, sisiguraduhin na napapakinggan. Sisiguraduhin na maglagay kami ng mekanismo para mapakinggan yung maraming mga hinaing ng iba't ibang sektor. We will make sure that government is there to help the more vulnerable. Level playing field ito sa lahat, pero naiintindihan ko na dapat yung aksyon ng government mas tinutulungan niya yung mas nangangailangan. Pero having said that, also provide an environment for businesses to thrive. Kasi ano naman yun hindi siya magkahiwalay, hindi siya mutually exclusive. Actually, yung pag-thrive ng businesses is part of helping the labor sector. Pero we will always find ways in making sure na yung mga naiiwan yung parati kong sinasabi, naiiwan sa laylayan ng lipunan, hindi siya lalong maiiwan. Hindi siya lalong maiiwan pag hindi binibigay sa kanya yung mekanismo para makahabol siya. And wages is part of that. Maraming mga conflicting na mga pagtingin. Halimbawa, one of the things na hinihingi ng maraming mga labor sectors na nakakausap natin na magkaroon ng uniform na minimum wage na national in scale right now kasi naka-regional tayo. So maraming mga bagay na kailangan diskusyon, pero parati yung assurance is bibigyan ng boses yung lahat. At they will take part directly in governance. They will take part directly in policy making.
May I now call on our President, President Louie?
Yeah, okay, sige. Thank you. I need to cut in because the Vice President has an engagement. So I know that we have a lot of questions still in the chat box, but please allow me this very short response and conferment of our certificates of appreciation. So, well, the ship has truly sailed for our guest speaker today. Long moored at the wharf, waiting for the other vessels to consolidate under mothership of the opposition, the ship of Vice President Leni has decided to put up anchor and cast off to the turbulent waters of Philippine politics. But if there's one thing going for our speaker, who is the only woman among the field of perceived to be serious presidential candidates, she has a steady determination to finish what she had started. That kind of resolve can only be forged by years of political challenges, if not harassment, legal contests, and online bullying. Ma'am, you have certainly attracted the record number of attendees today. We had 801 attendees in Zoom, 841 in Rappler, 1,500 viewers in Facebook. Congratulations. We wish you, Vice President Leni, the best of luck, and may your ship weather the storm. We hope that you will remember this day. Should you find success in your battle next year, and keep in mind the 7 areas of focus of Rotary that basically would serve as your templates actually for good governance. As tokens of our appreciation, the RVOTE will be giving you the certificate of appreciation signed by our district governor, Dr. Joji Tan, and the chairperson of RVOTE, past President Tenet Asiniero, and yours truly, for sharing your time and knowledge on this third session of the District 3830's RVOTE Voters Education Initiative. The Rotary Club of Makati, on the other hand, will send you a replica of the nameplate that was embedded on a reef bud that our immediate past President Peter Manzano has started during his term. I believe that this reef bud has been dedicated to you and is now gathering marine life, actually, in the Sea of Narvacan, Ilocos Sur, ironically, the perceived bailiwick of one of your opponents. You are also the first recipient of our club's 55th coffee table book, a digital image of which is now being shown on screen. Ma'am, this is really fresh off the press. And then can I have the fine bouquet of roses that will be given to you by the aunts of the Rotary Club of Makati. Here you go.
Thank you very much.
And the customary bottle of wine that you can enjoy with your daughters if they are already of drinking age. Ma'am, I hope you can spare a minute just for our customary photo op, if that is fine with you, ma'am.
Yes, yes,
Before
yes.
we go on closing remarks with Governor Sid. Ron, can we have a quick photo op, please, with the Vice President?
LCP Louis, that will be delivered through online delivery, Leni Online.
Leni Online. Okay, so we have that. All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Third slide.
Third slide.
Fourth slide. Fifth slide.
Sixth slide.
Final slide.
Final slide. Okay, before we
Thank you.
adjourn, I now give the floor to Governor Sid Garcia for his closing remarks before I adjourn, ma'am. Thank you. Gov Sid.
Yes, first of all, let me thank Madam Vice President Leni for joining us today. It was certainly refreshing to hear about your plans and programs, and you explained with deep knowledge on how you would take on the presidency if God will give you this opportunity to serve as our next president. I'm also pleased to learn about your clear plan of action on how to end the pandemic by supporting the frontliners and various solutions to the cures aside from vaccinations. And of course, I'm very pleased to know that you have focused on ending corruption in our country, which is for me the central cause of all these problems that we have right now. We hope that you will provide honest, competent, and compassionate leadership. I'm also very happy to see that you would like to fight hunger in our country and to continue to give assistance to the poor, especially those who will be affected by the pandemic. And of course, equally delighted of your support for the agricultural center for our farmers and for our youth education and for our workers protecting their jobs and creating more jobs in the future. Madam Leni, you know, Rotary has 5 core values. And at the end of the day, among these core values that we value, aside from service, fellowship, diversity, and integrity and leadership, we value integrity and leadership. And we hope you will provide that integrity that is needed, ever needed by our country by ending corruption in our country. Secondly, we look forward for leadership, a leadership that is based on service for others. We hope the Filipino people, by your campaigning in the months to come, will be able to be enlightened to choose the right leaders for our next country. And we hope that they will choose leaders who are rightful and true to the service of others. A leader who has a servant heart, a leader with integrity, a leader who will lead us in the next 6 years. Congratulations to all the organizers of this event today, led by President Louis and the members of the Rotary Club of Makati, and of course, to our District Chairman, Lynette Asenero, our RVOTE Chairman, for giving this initiative a big boost this Rotary year. Thank you and mabuhay po tayong lahat.
Thank you.
And now,
Thank you very
to end
much.
our program, we'd like to call on Louis to adjourn the program for today.
Okay, in behalf of the Rotary Club of Makati and our vote, I now adjourn this meeting. Thank you very much and good emceeing job, past President Regi Norredo. Mabuhay ka.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Congratulations,
Thank you.
LCP Louis, for the successful event.
Sorry.